Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Tianlu. Coming up in this edition. Hamas has released an Israeli-American hostage held in Gaza as Israel resumes its attacks on the devastated enclave. US President Donald Trump has welcomed the progress in trade talks with China. And Beijing has hosted the fourth ministerial meeting of the forum between China and the community of Latin American and Caribbean states. We begin with the Middle East. Israeli-American hostage Eden Alexander has arrived in Israel after being released from Gaza, where he was held in Hamas captivity for 19 months. Alexander is a US-born soldier serving in the Israeli army. He arrived at a military base adjacent to the Gaza Strip to reunite with his family, who landed only a few hours earlier from the United States. Hamas released him following direct talks with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, says his military will pause its operations to allow for the hostage release. Rami Al-Magari has more.
When news about the release of Alexander Eden, the American-Israeli soldier, was reported widely in the territory, many crowds took out to the street cheering this kind of event that could bear some kind of hope for a breakthrough of the situation that has been going desperate in terms of the humanitarian aid and the supplies that have been lacking or short in the territory for the past several weeks. This is something that the Palestinians hope will actually bring some kind of a breakthrough for them. This situation, the Palestinians here express variable thoughts about this. Some of them are optimistic, others are pessimistic, and others are just calling on the American administration to stop financing Israel or providing aid supplies like weaponries, that the war will stop soon. That the people just want the United States not only to get help or to help release an American hostage, but also to help end the situation once and for all with an Israeli ceasefire for a long time to come, and the release of Israeli hostages captivated in Gaza for the time being.
That was Rami Al-Magari reporting. Many people in Israel are questioning the government's treatment of hostages following the release of Eden Alexander. Jonathan Regev spoke to some residents in Tel Aviv to find out about Israel's efforts to bring hostages home.
Hostages released, but the feeling here at Hostage Square could be defined as bittersweet. Sweetness, of course, any hostage released from captivity is, of course, a very happy occasion, and we can see here people already are gathering to see this unfolding. But the feeling among Israelis is bitter, extremely bitter. Eden Alexander is an Israeli citizen, but also an American citizen. What about the others? What about all of the other hostages? Most of them do not have a foreign passport, clearly not an American passport. What is the Israeli government doing for them? According to many Israelis, the Israeli government is not doing enough.
But I don't believe, as an Israeli, that the government is doing enough to bring our hostages home.
What I feel is, for sure, they're not doing enough at all. I think that people are starting to realize that if you don't have a dual citizenship, then you're like a second-rate citizen, and perhaps our government won't do all that it can do to bring you home.
Those holding foreign passports and those not holding foreign passports, this is a feeling that is echoing all across the Israeli society on this day, a feeling that if you have a foreign passport, if you have a foreign country that is behind you, that is supporting you, your chances of being released are far better than those who only hold an Israeli passport.
That was Jonathan Regev reporting. In North America, U.S. President Donald Trump has welcomed the progress in trade talks with China in Switzerland, praising what he called the very, very good relationship between the U.S. and China. He was speaking at a press event just before leaving for the Middle East, the first major overseas trip of his second term. Nathan King reports from Washington.
In a wide-ranging press conference as he left for his trip to the Arabian Gulf, the president very, very positive about what was achieved in Switzerland over the weekend. We have to have, of course, a sense of reality. Tariffs on China have come down from 145%, which was essentially an embargo, to 30%. This 90-day pause gives both countries a chance to negotiate. However, Trump said it will not include steel, aluminum, or cars. Let's take a listen.
I think it's going to be fantastic for China. I think it's going to be fantastic for us. And I think it's going to be great for unification and peace.
When it comes to the Middle East, obviously he was positive about the hostage release, but wouldn't be drawn on whether he plans to meet Palestinians. We know he is not scheduled to go to Israel. Obviously, the world's focus is very much on could there be progress over the war in Gaza. However, President Trump focused on the economic relationship with the Middle East and especially with Saudi Arabia. Also signing executive order on drug costs in America. Now, he said it could lower prices by 80%. But if you look at the details, essentially asking pharmaceutical companies to lower their prices. He's got this idea that, and he's quite right on this, that other countries pay far less than the US. Their regulations are stronger, so he's going to put pressure on other countries to higher their prices and share the costs that are borne by Americans. He said he would use the full power of the federal government if this didn't work. The trouble is we don't know if he has the power to do any of this, and it's also a way of boosting budget predictions for savings when it comes to the budget and the bill going through Congress, and maybe a way, critics say, of hiding cuts to Medicare, because essentially price cuts on drugs could be part of that, even though they haven't been realized. The complications of Washington politics, both foreign and domestic.
Now it's Nathan King in Washington. In China, the country's exporters are pivoting to new markets as U.S. tariffs put pressure on trade. In the eastern city of Yangzhou, responsible for producing a third of the world's toothbrushes, local exporters are moving fast to adapt to the changing landscape. Olivia He has more.
With the United States continually increasing tariffs on Chinese goods, claiming the goal is to bring manufacturing back to America, one might wonder, is this strategy really working? To find answers, I visited a Chinese exporting factory. These factors would take the US at least 2 years to establish, according to Mu Shen, a foreign trade expert with 13 years of experience specializing in toothbrush exports. During this transition period, he added, American companies would still need China's supply chain.
In the early negotiations, we were still going over the terms, like splitting the tariffs half and half. But later the rate has gone up to 145%. It's obvious that further talks are pointless. Everyone agrees this number is way too high.
Back in the day, there were numerous orders from the US during this time of year, totaling nearly 20 million yuan annually. Now, orders have declined by 2/3, and American clients are caught between two challenges, high tariffs and an inventory crisis. So who's truly feeling the pressure from these tariffs?
Let me give you a simple example. Before the trade war, the tariff on toothbrushes was 7.84%. If we price a single toothbrush at $1, that's easy to calculate. When we bring it into the US with taxes included, the cost comes to about $1.08. But with the tariffs rising up to 145% and still assuming the toothbrush costs $1, the final price in the US ends up around $2.45. Essentially, American consumers are bearing a much higher price now. Last year, They could buy 2 or 3 toothbrushes for what now might buy only 1.
Meanwhile, the Chinese factory responded to a significant decline in U.S. sales by proactively expanding its customer base in other regions and developing the domestic market to mitigate risks.
We are trying to develop our new markets, in specific the Belt and Road participating countries, as you can see here. It's very important for us to find alternative ways. At the same time, we are actually also having our
own brand.
Yeah, our own brand, and we are trying to compete with European and American brands, which is the market is showing very positive feedback.
The policy not only strained global supply chains, but ultimately backfired, squeezing local businesses and leaving American consumers to foot the bill.
That was Olivia He reporting. On China's diplomacy, President Xi Jinping has called on countries to stand together to promote global peace and stability in the face of unilateralism and protectionism. He was speaking in Beijing at the opening of the 4th ministerial meeting of a forum between China and the community of Latin American and Caribbean states. President Xi said there are no winners in tariff or trade wars, and bullying and hegemony will only result in self-isolation. He said China is willing to strengthen solidarity with Latin American and Caribbean countries and continue to support each other on issues concerning their core interests and major concerns. China has decided to offer a visa-free policy to 5 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean and will expand the policy to cover more regional countries in due course. The Chinese president also pledged to offer 3,500 government scholarships for members of the CELAC nations in the next 3 years. Chen Ziyuan reports from Beijing.
Key message sent by world leaders attending event is that no single country has the right to rule global trade. I think this is echoing in President Xi's speech, as well as President Lula and also Chile President Boric's speeches, that they mentioned that amid these challenges, countries should come together to cooperate, to develop, especially under the Belt and Road Initiative, as well as Global South platform. I want to start with the 5 programs that Chinese President Xi Jinping has pushed forward and promoted during his speech at the opening event. He said that the 5 program will be focusing on the unity of improving people's livelihood, as well as sharing the knowledge of cultural protection, as well as understanding civilization between China and Latin America, as well as Caribbean countries. He also talked about programs among peace, cooperation, disaster, and also people-to-people exchanges.
That was Chen Ziyuan reporting. And finally, in Africa, Chinese and Kenyan volunteers are changing the lives of young children in one of Nairobi's poor neighborhoods. Marian Gatruhi tells us more about this product under the Silk Road People-to-People Connectivity Africa initiative.
In the heart of Nairobi's Mathare informal settlement, where many families survive on less than $1 a day, a unique volunteer initiative is bridging continents and changing lives. The program, which is run by the Dream Building Service Association and supported by Chinese civil society organizations and the China NGO Network for International Exchanges, offers school renovations, meals, mentorship, as well as training for thousands of children.
So far we have renovated 7 schools, out of which 6 is in Mathare, and 1 of them is in Uganda, Kampala. And in total, we are supporting 5,000 students with the feeding program and covering about 30 to 40,000 people around the community.
The feeding program, which was started in 2014, is a lifeline for many in a community where most parents work hand-to-mouth jobs, and putting food on the table remains a challenge.
This lunch program enables a parent, when he or she goes to work, she knows that my son, wherever he is, or my daughter, she will get lunch without paying anything. So through that, at least we have reduced the burden from the parents.
During a recent event, Chinese NGOs and enterprises came together to see how their assistance has impacted lives and to also renew their commitment to the program.
So in the long run, we hope that with the help of the Chinese civil society, we can bring changes to the children. We can provide them more chances to have the access to education, and we can bring them food, we can bring them hope for the future.
Through arts, sports, and today's Silk Road People-to-People Connectivity Africa, China-Africa Friendship for International Volunteer Service, children are finding new purpose and staying in school.
The key thing, it has reduced crime in our area. It has also made children stick in school, because most of the time children, when they come to school and they have not taken breakfast and they will not take lunch, then the next thing they will have to leave school or skip from school, go look for something to eat.
As the program expands across Africa, this people-to-people partnership continues to grow, yet another indicator that small acts of solidarity can shape a brighter future.
In a city where inequality and innovation live side by side, this collaboration offers a different kind of headline, one where volunteers are welcome not as donors but as partners. And for the children here, it may just be the beginning of new dreams shaped by global hands and local hope.
That's Marian Gachuhi in Nairobi. Recapping today's headlines, Hamas has released an Israeli-American hostage held in Gaza as Israel resumes its attacks on the devastated enclave. US President Donald Trump has welcomed the progress in trade talks with China. And Beijing has hosted the fourth ministerial meeting of the forum between China and the community of Latin American and Caribbean states. That's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to the Beijing Hour, a one-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Tianlu. Thank you for listening.